If you're into Roblox trading, you've probably heard of a Chrome extension called RoPro. It's most likely you've heard some negative things about RoPro, as in it's a logger, or it steals your limiteds, or it logs your IP and cookies. And we're going to be looking at its source code today and see if that's really true. Before we get this video started, I just wanted to mention that the creator of RoPro, Dice, contacted me on Discord, and we had a very nice conversation. I'll put some screenshots right here on screen as I'm talking. He was a very nice dude. He just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, slandering his extension and all that. And I understand that. He wasn't mean. He wasn't, angry at me or anything. We had a nice conversation. I talked to him earlier today, too, before I started recording this. So yeah, let's get into this. So I have the source code of RoPro here itself. This is taken straight from the extension. I didn't get this from Dice himself, so we know that this is what runs when you run RoPro. This is the code that gets executed. Before we get started, I just want to say, right now, no, RoPro does not log your cookies or data. In fact, I've searched through every line of code on here, and I've made sure of that before I said anything about this. I've searched every single file on this extension, so be rest assured, RoPro is safe to install. That doesn't mean that it's good, and we're going to get into that. So starting off, we have a few issues. He has a lot of ifs over here, and normally that wouldn't be an issue, unless it's this abomination right here. That is not okay. We do not do that. I don't care what you're making. Please never do that. Unless you're a literal 2-year-old just learning how to type and breathe, then don't do this, please, for the love of God. Now, if you're not into coding, I'll explain very simply why this is bad. He has a bajillion ifs, else-ifs, and else statements here. And yes, it gets the job done. Not very good. So basically, what this is doing is it's going through each of these if statements and saying, is that a valid string? Does this contain that string of text? And if the answer is yes, it will return something. If it doesn't, it won't. So as we go through, this is one right here. This is one valid if statement with 2 substatements. If the return string is get URL, it'll execute this. That's not good. Because if you're running this on multiple instances, all like this, those are going to stack up, because what if statements do is it checks every single statement right here, every single statement that is listed, it'll check it for the return string, and if it doesn't find it, it'll check see if there's an else if statement or an else, and it'll execute that block of code. Now, you can imagine how that's going to slow things down. Here, the best way I can explain this is imagine you go to the kitchen and you realize you left your glasses in your room. So you run back to your room, you get your glasses, then go back to the kitchen. That's fine. You do that once, it's not going to matter. But when you're running back and forth to the kitchen in your bedroom 20 times, those are going to add up, and it's going to slow down your task. That's the best way I can really describe what's going on here. It's going through each of the statements here, and checking if the string that's returned matches any of these. The way to circumvent this, and the best possible optimized way to do it, is to use a switch. A switch is, it'll get the return statement, and if it matches one of them, it'll activate that one specifically. It doesn't check all of them. If it matches one of them, bam, easy. It doesn't go through every single one and check if it matches. So let's use our kitchen example again. If you were to use a switch instead, you'd bring your glasses with you to the kitchen and everything else. You'd make one trip there, one trip back. Simple. And now this brings us to my second issue with this extension. He has just plain API links just sitting out in the open. Now on their own, plain API links aren't a harm or risk to the user itself unless it's handling data, like sending a cookie to a server and sending it back to local storage. RoPro doesn't do that. It doesn't get any of your cookies or data, never sends it to a server. But this runs a risk to the program itself and the integrity of it. Because with just plain API links out in the open like this, without any secret authorization link or key, they're just out there for anybody to use in their own program. Or, if you're handling a subscription service like RoPro has, you can just simply give yourself that subscription with the API. Now, RoPro itself doesn't handle it all with an API link, which is good, but it still handles very key features with these links. So, having those out in the open for anybody to see, if they had the knowledge to do so, is not very good. Now, like I'm saying, RoPro itself is not a security risk to you. What is my issue with it? Well, my issue is how poorly it's written. Now, I'm not going to bash Dice or his programming skills, but it's quite obvious that he either is new to JavaScript, which isn't a bad thing. If you're new, go for it. Or he doesn't know what he's doing. And if he doesn't know what he's doing, that could lead to vulnerabilities. And speaking of vulnerabilities, now the reason RoPro has such a bad reputation is because of the vulnerability it had within its first week of release. RoPro has a feature where you can see a user's group role next to their name on a group wall. So, in Roblox, for some reason, if its group roles have HTML tags surrounding them, it'll execute that code. And so, people were putting cookie logger links in their group name. And such, when RoPro viewed them, it would log the user. Now, RoPro wasn't doing this intentionally, it was not their doing. It was people who saw a vulnerability in RoPro's extension and just exploited it. And since then, it's been patched. It now strips the HTML tags from the name. So, that being said, now the question, is RoPro safe to install? I've reviewed the code for it, I've reviewed everything, and from what I can tell, there's no security risk to you, the user. But there are issues with the program. But there are no vulnerabilities that would cause you any direct harm. So going back to the poorly programmed part of this extension, we can see here this is an entire block of data. If you're just going to use an if statement for comparing two integers, that's fine. But when you do it on a scale like this, that is not fine. In fact, I'm willing to bet money that there's going to be 200 or something if statements here. So would you look at that, 280 ifs. You know, that's not, okay, that's a little much. Just a tiny bit much. Let's see if he uses switches. Okay, wait. In this entire 12,000 lines of code, there are 2 switches and 280 if statements. That's not good. That is not good. So you can just go here and search if, and you'll see that there's a little bit too much. And if I'm sure, if I search switch, there's no results. Now on to what I said earlier about RoPro having issues with the integrity of the program. If a user who knew what they were doing went in here, took a quick glance on profile or options.js, or background.js, they would very easily figure out how to set their own status as a premium user. And that's not okay when you're charging for a subscription service. If this is the only way the extension makes money, you're gonna be duped out of money when somebody who knows what they're doing comes along and tells people how to do it. Now this isn't an issue to everyday users, but to the creator of the extension itself, this is terrible. But this is nothing for you guys to really care about. The main thing is, RoPro is safe to install, and I find it actually quite helpful if you're into trading. It's a good extension, it's not necessary, but it provides some helpful insights if you're into trading and that stuff. Also, it has some other utilities if you're into Roblox. It has quite a few things. But I'm going to leave the source code as a GitHub link in the description if you guys want to look at it yourself in case you don't believe me. This video is... Dice did not tell me to make this video, he did not pay me to make this, he did not pay me to clear his rep. The reason I'm doing this is because I always see people shit talk RoPro, and I was one of them. And at one point, I was one of them. I was making fun of RoPro, but now that I'm looking at it, he doesn't deserve the hate that he's getting. I personally have RoPro installed now that I've verified that it is safe to use. That being said, if you guys like this video, make sure to like it. If you dislike it, go ahead and like it. Let me know in the comments if I did a good job at this, and I'll see you next time. Peace.